Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 24, Part 9. Political Judo. A hush fell over the chamber. Eldia stared wide-eyed at the Penigra. He can't possibly plan to... Oh dear. She wanted to scream down into the chamber to tell Henry it was a trap as she saw metaphorical thunderclouds form over his head. The vilification and criminalization of addiction is a standard move in the Kenfistration Handbook, and that feather duster knows it well. He also must know how old Henry is. Oh, darling, be careful. Henry put a hard edge into his voice. Just what substances are you referring to, my dear ambassador? Eldia sat back and blinked. Those words. I am glad I learned English. The translator made all of that come off menacing, but she had to suppress a laugh as she took another look at Henry's body language and noticed the reporters with her leaning expectantly. He is feigning anger, playing to the crowd. Of course he smelled the trap. She shook her head at herself. Eldia, darling, you picked better than a man who would fall for something that obvious. Bitara answered Henry with the sort of disdain only an annoyed Penigra could muster. Why, your coffee and chocolate, of course. Another sharp intake of breath throughout the council chambers. Everyone here loves both those things, and no small number of these ambassadors have investments in it as well. What could that bird possibly think? Ditara continued. The intoxicating and addictive effects of these chemicals is, I think, rather well known at this point. No, Ambassador Archer, please, I have shown considerable forbearance today and allowed you to speak. I do believe I should be allowed a few minutes, no? Henry had not actually tried to interrupt, but the ambassador still did another of those strange head tilts where he looked at Henry out of one eye. Elydia's translators informed her this was something of a dare. Henry remained quiet, and the bird continued with a dismissive gesture. What is that human phrase? Never interrupt your opponent when he is digging himself a hole, Ditara continued. It is a simple and rather well-known scheme. Addict people to your product, claim it isn't that addictive, then watch the money roll in. In the meantime, prices stay high and supply stays low because no one else is legally capable of producing it. I say no. No more allowing humanity to hoard the profits from these substances, no more letting them charge prices a dozen times greater than similar treats, while those who have had a taste but can afford no more. We should force the humans to give up seed plants to anyone who wants them, and publish the growth instructions. No more letting them hold this council hostage over threats to withhold these things and allow the addicted to suffer. Eldia couldn't help but shake her head. The other reporters leaned forward with interest, some with dark grins on their faces. Always the vultures who wish to see the rising star fall. When will they learn? The Penigra stood straight, with his hands slightly raised, as if he expected a swell of applause or other affirmation. What he got was a mix of grumbles, some of them sounding like a sort of greedy and grudging agreement, others quite hostile. Henry spoke. You want to claim that coffee and chocolate are that addictive, ambassador. I am afraid that you have a long row to hoe for that one. I can provide you stacks of documentation, taller than myself, of the research which results in listing the addictive index of both those substances, and they fall well below a number of common consumer goods, including even the mildest alcohols. We humans know a thing or two about addiction, ambassador, but you know this well. Punitive measures against the addicted, for certain substances but exempting others, carefully concealing the fact that you were denying medications and criminalizing illness. Eldia had kept her eyes on the Penigra rather than Henry, so she saw it. Ditara flashed a momentary expression of satisfaction and victory. Henry had fallen directly into Ditara's trap. Ditara interrupted. Oh yes, Kenfistration. The attempt to prevent you humans from doing, well, basically what you have done, becoming a threat to all sapient life in the League. And, now, because I bring up chemical addiction, you, what, wish to accuse me of attempting to use Kenfistration techniques against the League? Several of Henry's allies gave him worried glances when he failed to interrupt. Eldia just let herself smile slightly. Henry favored the man with a broad and spread his hands wide. You said it, Ambassador, not me. Mirth rippled through the chamber as Datara responded, almost as if he'd taken a physical blow. I meant to imply no such thing, and think I was fairly clear in that fact. No, I was attempting to remind everyone that, because of the attempts to castrate us, we have a great deal of experience with, and knowledge of, addiction. You see, Eldia couldn't suppress a giggle as her man uttered the forbidden words. No one around her got the joke. After we got control of our governments back from the puppeteers, we were left with entire populations worth of people mired in severe chemical addiction, both to banned and allowed substances. We came up with indexing schemes of substances all on our own, and then tested the methods used to define them until we got it right. We researched causes of addiction, types of addiction, how to treat each, when to use psychology, chemistry, behavioral therapy, or whatever else. Did you know, for example, that it is possible to become chemically, not just behaviorally, but chemically, addicted to rage, not just for humans either? Our medical professionals have, almost since we joined the council, been quietly working with experts of nearly all of you to identify the similarities and differences in how addictions work in all of our species. Henry shook his head and gave a small laugh. I apologize, all of you. This is a subject that is a sore spot for many of my people, for a lot of reasons that I won't go into here. If you are curious, I will be willing to have informational sessions to explain why. I do have a point in all of that, however, and the point is to flatly reject Ambassador Datara's claim that either substance at issue is sufficiently addictive to require special treatment. However, the challenge has been issued, and it must be answered, and I can hardly expect all of you to simply take my word for it. Henry flashed that trademark grin of his, and Eldia looked around the chamber. He has them anxiously waiting to see what kind of creature he is going to pull out of his hat this time. Well done, my dear. Well done. Of course, I am just as curious. Therefore, I will provide an alternative proposal. A committee will be formed of races neutral to the war. That means that our dear Pinigran can't be on it. I think we all see where their sympathies lie. I will suggest that the Bytha should not be either, just out of their opposition to the Pinigra. This committee's purpose will be to study the addictive indexing of chocolate and coffee, and determine if they are, in fact, addictive enough to meet council guidelines for remediation. If they determine intervention is warranted, then humanity will pledge to volunteer the funds, personnel, and expertise to alleviate the suffering of those caught in the throes of addiction to these horrible plagues which we have foisted upon all of you. A few barking laughs and many wry smiles greeted Henry's hyperbole. Tatara broke in. Oh, how generous. The great and noble humans, at it again, proving that they are oh so wonderful and will offer to help us all. For nothing. If we can actually catch them doing something wrong. But just you wait. Henry isn't done. He has dangled a carrot in front of you. Now will come the stick. Henry looked up at Tatara, raised his eyebrows, and shrugged. You aren't entirely wrong for all your attempts at sarcasm, Ambassador. We, the race of humanity, and the combined governments of the Confederation, do try to be good neighbors to the best of our ability. Part of that is taking responsibility when we make mistakes, and, if we have made a mistake, and our products are more addictive to some of you than we believed, we vow to work to correct it. Not to pay some sort of bribes, or punitive damages, so I'm not sure if that promise would really be considered a carrot, as you put it. I do, however, have something of a stick to wield here, such as it is. If the substances in question are simply declared, by fiat and without proper scientific consideration, to be so terrible that remediation is required, and you choose theft from us as that remediation when we are offering, freely, to work to repair the issue, then, well, there is little we could do to stop you. However, we will not help you either. In order to comply with the order, we will direct anyone who wishes to obtain seed crop for these plants to areas on Earth where they are growing wild, and you will be welcome to gather seeds to your heart's content. That is the extent of the aid that we will offer. You will find that both plants are extremely temperamental, require very specific conditions, and a lot of care. We send our experts to every colony we establish and spend vast sums to try to get the plants to take hold, and have a success rate in the 20% range. That said, if you choose to violate our natural patents on purely political grounds, then you will be welcome to try. All the information that is needed, everything we know about them, is freely available on the interstellar internets, and we will not make any attempts to scrub the data. nor will we forbid our experts from helping anyone who wishes to grow the plants. If the council decides to strip us of our exclusive rights to an indigenous cash crop, I think you won't find many takers though, at any price, and we will not compel our experts. And neither will you. There were some grumbles at that remark, and Eldia felt a flash of worry. Way too many ambassadors here enjoy the idea that they can just order things and make them so. Then the ambassadors who grumbled found themselves the objects of hard scrutiny from their neighbors, and most settled back and tried to pretend they hadn't just responded. Eldia suppressed a smile. Henry let the microdrama play out, then continued. I will remind all of you that there are a great many rules of this league to prevent this council, or any government, from compelling citizens to do much of anything, and that those rules get even stricter when it comes to experts applying their knowledge and experience. The Exaltans flaunted these rules when it suited them, of course. Henry then shrugged and left the challenge unstated. Now, we have 2 proposals before us, and a lot still left to do in this session. Rather than going through a lot of seconds and other procedures, I suggest we use the fast track and put up 3 options. My proposal, Ambassador Datara's, or other. If other wins, then we would open things up for more proposals. Shall we? Eldia sat back and got comfortable. A few token objections floated in, but not enough to sidetrack the vote. When it had been tallied, no one had voted for Datara's proposal. There were 2 votes for other, and a number who abstained. When the board lit up the result, there were a number of amused and annoyed glances at the Pinigran ambassador. Gotcha! You did this to stall, and for no other reason. Just try to flap your beak again, Birdie. Even some of your allies will be racing to mute you.